Welcome in to the Jordy Culotta Show. Wave your hand out there, baby!
Shout out to the show.
She puts the pinky into the nostril. Man, look at that.
Healthy competition, there's nothing like it.
Y'all grow up.
The line's wrapped around the stadium.
Different strengths. I just lost a tooth.
It's going to be fun.
You know, we might have a story.
I love what you're doing.
Ogeron wants to take us fishing this afternoon.
Sharif, you play for the bad boys of the SEC, man. We don't apologize to anybody.
A lot of people are saying you're going to be wearing number 7.
I don't really know. I want to.
He look crazy, Bill.
Good feet on the old man.
Definitely come back.
We'll be right back with the Jordy Culotta Show. All right, welcome into a Wednesday edition of a post-Mardi Gras edition of the Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered as always by our friends over at Go Chevrolet. Hopefully everybody had a good, safe holiday and carnival as we get back to work here and get back to real life here on this Wednesday, this Ash Wednesday, first day of Lent. What are you giving up? You giving anything up? You sacrificing anything over the next 40 days? What you got, Stewie? I'm sure you've poisoned your soul over the last 72 hours. What are you looking to get out of your system here?
I think I can't say I'll give up drinking, but you know,
Probably
take
got
a break.
too much left in the system.
Yeah.
Huh? You still running on alcohol? You went to New Orleans a couple of days?
Yeah, take a break. I'm gonna take a break though. For
Everybody
sure.
safe? Everybody made it back safe?
Yes.
We'll talk about some of the storylines that has been happening since we last spoke to you, and that was on Friday. LSU baseball erupted over the weekend for 3 big wins, and then they won last night, of course, versus Southern. As Trey Morgan, if you were there, you saw a pretty cool event as Trey Morgan hit for the cycle, the natural cycle, as he does it in order. Hits a single, a double, a triple, and then his last at bat, he hits a home run. First player to hit for the cycle since, Stewie?
Mikey Matuk.
Mikey Matuk, that's right. Our own here at FM Digital Media is Matuk, and his show, Mic'd Up, will be live this afternoon at 6 o'clock, recapping last night's baseball win where Thatcher Hurd escaped a little bit of trouble in the first. Christian Little picked up the win entering the game in the third inning. He was in there for 3 2/3, struck out 6, looked really good, allowing just 1 hit and 1 walk. We'll talk more about it coming up here with Doug Thompson at 7:30 this morning, as Dougie will stop by and talk about this LSU baseball opening weekend. How cool it was for him to be on Morgan's historic night last night for LSU as the Tigers take care of business versus the Jags. They will now head to the Round Rock Classic. That'll be this Friday as they'll take on Kansas State. First pitch scheduled for 2 o'clock. We'll talk to Thompson about that coming up here. He'll be on the phone line, which every day is brought to you by Metropolitan Health Group, real doctors and real solutions from our friends over at Metropolitan Health Group. Get in touch with Charlie Harvey and Jason Ramazan and the entire crew over there for Metropolitan Health Group. We're also going to talk to Brody Miller because a story that came out over the weekend, a couple of football stories. Malik Neighbors was arrested in New Orleans on a weapons charge, according to authorities. He was booked into Orleans Parish Prison on Tuesday morning for illegally carrying a weapon, jail records show. I hate to say this out loud, and by no means do I, at any point, push guns, whatever. That's your own stance. But New Orleans right now is as unsafe of a city that you can find probably in the world. I mean, it feels as if it's a third world country. I was watching a friend of mine, Barrett Blondo, who is a successful businessman here in town, started Falaya Real Estate, and he was in New Orleans over the weekend, taking in the parades with his family. He's got a wife and a young son and a nephew, and a big family that has always experienced and loved New Orleans. Barrett's a good friend that goes back a long time. He and I are high school buddies, and we've celebrated many a Mardi Gras together from young age into adulthood. And he put out a video on his, I believe it was his Facebook page last night, where he had moved his car into, what he had thought to be a protected parking lot in New Orleans, and he wakes up yesterday morning to go on an early morning run before all the festivities start on Fat Tuesday, and runs past his car in the parking lot. And I mean, there's probably 25 cars in the parking lot, and 15, 16, 17 of them are windows bashed in, windows taken off of their frame, cars just broken into. I mean, it is, you play the numbers when you go to New Orleans. If you go enough, you're going to experience some type of crime, whether it's carjacking, whether it's your car being broken into, whether it's gun violence, whether it's whatever it is. I mean, there are just stories every single day that is coming out of that city where it feels as if it's just very unsafe. And Baton Rouge is not too far behind. By no means do I think that we can sit over here and cast stones in Baton Rouge with the way that our crime is handled, or lack thereof. But I mean, some of the images that came out of Mardi Gras, I mean, the one that I think that will live on forever is LaToya Cantrell, the mayor of New Orleans, sitting in front of City Hall with a microphone in her mouth as a float rolls up and wishes her happy Mardi Gras, but they changed the word out from happy to vappy. It's not funny, but I mean, that's the cop, that's the security, detail that she was, banging on city property, all day while she's like not answering emails and just kind of sitting up in the Pentabla apartment, just kind of like living it up, what I mean, just kind of chilling and having sex and, just hanging out on company time and somebody, replaces the sign and says Vappy Mardi Gras, which I think is classic. And LaToya goes into just a Jerry Springer tirade where she's just nodding her head and bouncing back and forth, and then ultimately shoots the bird at a float full of, New Orleanians, of some of the city's citizens, as the parade rolls by. I mean, it is an absolute zoo down there in New Orleans when it just comes from the leadership. So Malik Neighbors, being scooped up for having a gun. Now, this isn't the news that you want, man. No. by any means. He was released from jail yesterday morning. The arrest happened about 9:00 Monday night. Look, he's one of LSU's premier players. I'll be anxious to see what the program has to say about this, or if there is, what type of penalty there is. From the field standpoint, quite frankly, to be honest, he can't miss the Florida State game. Like, you have to have him against Florida State. So whatever the punishment is, whether he's running stadiums early in the morning or he's got to stay after practice and, catch up some of his, some of the ramifications of his decisions, I would not expect him to miss any game time here just because of how crucial LSU's schedule is. So, Duron Traw says he will miss a few games. I doubt that.
Same.
I doubt that. I would be very surprised if he misses more than a quarter on this. Now, look, honestly, I don't know the entire story. I don't know what led to the arrest. I don't know what went on for that to ultimately happen. But I do know that he has, been he is out of jail, and that this is a story that, hopefully that can have some resolution as far as the legal system goes here, sooner rather than later. But as I said, this is not the news that you want. But I do believe that it's something that you can overcome in-house. I think that you can handle this in-house. Speaking of in-house, some news yesterday came out about LSU's coaching staff, and we've been kind of waiting on this over the last couple of days and weeks. These are things that we have been hearing coming out of the program, is that Brian Polian was going to be moving on. It seemed as if he was searching for a new job, but it was announced yesterday that LSU has officially announced that Polian is out as the special teams coordinator and has been moved to an off-the-field position with the football program. University as officials confirmed that on Tuesday. I've also talked to some people in and around the program that says, look, this is, a reassignment with, the hope that Polian can find another gig. It didn't work out, quite honestly, in year one. I mean, if we're being really frank about it, it didn't work out from day one with Polian. I mean, game one was as bad as, they played on special teams, and, even into the SEC title game throughout the entire season, the special teams unit just haunted the football program. So to see the news that Polian was out, I thought that was really and truly, you hate to see anybody lose their job. You're not pulling for anybody to get fired, but the state and really kind of how football coaches and the coaching industry works. There's a ton of turnover. There's a lot of one-year deals, and it was quite evident within the 1 year that Brian Polian was just not a fit at LSU. He's not a fit inside the program. He wasn't a fit with the culture. He wasn't a fit with the recruiting. And it's not just people around the program that you talk to. You can talk to high school coaches. You can talk to recruits. I mean, I talked to numerous recruits, high-end recruits, that signed with LSU this year that sent messages back to Brian Kelly. I do not want to talk to Brian Polian. I do not want to have conversations with him. We don't have anything in common. There's nothing that he says to me that really gets me moving. And as a recruiting coordinator at a school like LSU, you can't have that type of feedback. That cannot be happening. And we said it last year when it was going on, and I'll continue to say it now. I think that this is a sign that Brian Kelly is committed to winning at the highest level, because the margin of error at a school like LSU, with the expectation that it's had, year in, year out, day in, day out, to be quite frank and to be quite honest, you can't hire your friends. You can't do people favors. You can do that at schools like Notre Dame. I mean, really and truly, that's the difference in whether it's the league or whether it's the program. We can debate that, but you can tuck people away at schools like Notre Dame and put them in roles where you can cover them up. At a school like LSU, when you're competing against Georgia, Alabama, Texas A&M, Arkansas, that are sparing no cost, now Texas, Oklahoma, that are sparing no dime, that are sparing no cost at winning at whatever it takes. And when you are committed and you are on that and in that class, there's things like a special teams coach that is somebody that you have a relationship with, that you're ultimately, and I don't mean this with any disrespect, but ultimately you're doing a favor. You know how many people would run through a wall to coach LSU's special teams? Not only because of the price tag that comes along with it, but the players that you get to coach and the roster that you have the access to coach those units. You know how many people would run through a brick wall to be the recruiting coordinator at LSU, to put that on your resume, to hand that out on your business card, what that looks like, the cachet that comes with when you walk into a room, when you walk into a New Orleans coaches clinic and you're the LSU recruiting coordinator. You better have some swag to you, man. You better have some respect to you when you walk into the room. That didn't happen with Brian Polian. That's how it was. Nobody looked at him and felt as if he fit at LSU as the recruiting coordinator. I mean, we all just assume and all just really talk to people on the ground and realize that's Frank Wilson's store. You know, I mean, that's where Frank Wilson operates. He's from here. He's had the conversations, the relationships. He's the one in-house that are saying, look, this is the way we got to go. We can't go fly to Utah to go recruit a defensive end. You're flying over 1,000 of them in the state of Louisiana and Texas to get there. Why would you do that? And there's no real explanation on why other than that's what they want to do. And that's not, you know, that can work at Notre Dame. You know what I mean? Like that can work at a school like Notre Dame. When you are wanting to be a top 5 program and compete for playoffs every year, you can't do people favors. You know? I mean, it's just, that's the facts of it. That's the harsh reality of it. That's the brutal honesty of a sport like football when you're trying to win at all cost. You know, there's a lot of people within the sport of football that are on staffs that are around the building because they got a friend somewhere. They got a connection somewhere. You may be able to have those as shadow staffers and guys that are, you know, putting the equipment in the lockers and breaking down the videotape, but it can't be somebody with a coordinator role, especially 2 of them. Special team and recruiting at LSU can't be handled by somebody that doesn't have the respect of the people around them. It's just, it's not going to work. It didn't work, and good on Brian Kelly for calling it out. Really. I think that this is a clear indicator that Brian Kelly is committed to winning. You know, I mean, if you looked at his staff, all in all, there was really one outlier. There was one that you were kind of like, this one kind of doesn't make sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense that you got a guy like Frank Wilson or Cortez Hankton on staff who've got really solid relationships within the state and specifically within New Orleans and not put them as the recruiting coordinator. You know, I mean, like, how does that happen? But then when you find out kind of on the ground level, behind the scenes, it's, you know, people kind of working around. It's people kind of having conversations that you have to keep away from people. Things that are just making the job at LSU football difficult. And it can't be, because it's not difficult in Alabama's recruiting department. It's not difficult in Georgia's recruiting department. It's not difficult in Texas A&M's recruiting department. It can't be an obstacle for LSU to have those conversations. Just can't be. So I think that it is a really solid move by LSU to get to make a move, to bring in. I mean, I can't wait to see who he hires. I think that there's some names that make sense. What is it, Big A from Ole Miss, who's got some experience with Brian Kelly on Notre Dame staff. He was a staffer, a shadow staffer, somebody that was on as a consultant, was there with him in South Bend. So maybe he's somebody that would make sense. Uncle Fuddy's. If this Jordy posted this on Tiger Droppings, it would be deleted for stupid. Spectrum Wellcare. Jordy, he's now full-time GM recruiting coordinator. I wouldn't see that lasting, to be quite honest. And I don't think that that's real as far as the title goes. I think that's something that, you know, they were kind of fishing around in-house. But I expect Brian Polian to be on to another job, or, you know, I don't think that he'll have a lot of say-so in recruiting. I don't think that he'll have a lot of say-so in evaluation. I don't think that he'll have a lot of say-so in what happens. I see a lot of you saying Polian is the GM. Okay. I would just kind of wait and see on that. But like I said, I think it's going to be it's going to be a job with a lot of interest. with a lot of intrigue that LSU is going to have, a real opportunity to go out and make a solid hire. A lot of people talking about Greg McMahon. I don't know. I know that McMahon was still around when Brian Kelly got the job. He's a consultant right now on Texas staff with Steve Sarkisian. And, whether or not he's a name that pops up, obviously LSU's special teams units while McMahon was here was recruiting at a very high level. And obviously was performing on the field at a very high level. So, there was not a lot not to like about the way that LSU was performing on special teams under Greg McMahon. So, it's going to be a job that has a ton of interest on it. So, it'll be interesting to see how he moves. Remember, Daily, we're brought to you by Katie's Restaurant. I'm sure today will be a pretty live day at Katie's Restaurant as people are wrapping up the weekend, New Orleans, Mardi Gras, all of the celebration as they get in for Ash Wednesday. Today, over at Katie's, they will have, obviously, a Lenten friendly menu for you over the next couple of weeks. They're down on Iberville Street. You can find them easily online at katiesinmidcity.com. katiesinmidcity.com is where you can find them. Katie's Restaurant is, of course, their sister restaurant. Francesca's by Katie's is located in Lakeview. You can stop in and see them. Great deli with Francesca's, but all of it online, katiesinmidcity.com, katiesinmidcity.com. Cordell Music wouldn't let Polian pick my backyard football team full of kids. Yeah, look, it's that's kind of how it is. Look, I'm just being honest with you. You know what I mean? Like, you can come at me. Well, he's the GM. Okay, we'll see. You think they're moving him to the general manager role after removing him from the special teams coordinator and really taking his powers away from recruiting? This is a temporary tag, in my opinion, until they can find Polian either another landing spot or he moves on. But to think, or if anyone believes that he has a real effect on the recruiting department and what goes on day to day, I would tell you that you're wrong. It's just it's not going to how it's flowing. So we'll see how it happens and how they replace it. What about LSU baseball? Tigers look like the number one team in the country. The Tigers looked just powerful yesterday. What was it? Tennessee fan that was popping off about LSU down 4-0 to Southern early on. LSU just answers with 18 unanswered runs, including a couple of bombs from LSU's lineup, including Trey Morgan, Braden Joubert hit one, Jared Jones.
Coach, all that he's number one. All last team, like he is.
Good God.
Like I thought Dylan Cruz had a nice ass.
That thing hadn't landed yet.
Like.
If it doesn't hit the scoreboard,
it's still going. It might go to Nicholson. Studio.
That thing was a missile coming off the bat. Dude.
He didn't even it wasn't like he put a lot of effort into it.
No, he flicked his wrist
and just watch it fly.
Gone. It was like, whoa. Skeens is a dog.
Yeah,
saw him on Friday. SEC Player of the Week after his performance on opening night for LSU. So we will talk all about that with Doug Thompson. Thompson was on the call for the LSU Sports Radio Network. He was sitting next to Chris Blair yesterday up in the press box. We will call Dougie up. It'll be a phone call here with DT9 next year. We'll talk about LSU hitting the road for the first time this season. They're heading over to Round Rock, Texas for the Round Rock Classic. They'll face Kansas State in the first game at 2 o'clock on Friday. We'll talk to Dougie about what he saw from Skeens, what he's seen from this lineup, how cool that was last night to see Trey Morgan hit for the natural cycle. We mentioned it, the last time a cycle was hit for by an LSU player was Mikey Matok, who did it back in April of 2010. where he did it against Alcorn State. Last night, Morgan versus Southern had the natural cycle where his first at-bat produced a single, next at-bat a double, third at-bat a triple, and then his final at-bat of the night, he hits a home run. So in succession, he kind of does it naturally, which was cool to see, cool to hear. Doug Thompson on the call last night, LSU Sports Radio Network. We'll hear from him next as we will talk about this Tiger team. Coming up also this morning, we'll talk to Brody Miller about the opening with the special teams coordinator. Who are some of the names to look out for LSU? What does he expect maybe some of the fallout to be from this Malik Neighbors story that happened over the weekend, if any, coming this offseason, going into next year? Some of the LSU storylines as we move through February and move into a day closer to spring football practice. We'll catch up with Brody Miller. And then Jacques will be in studio just like he is every Wednesday with us, and we'll talk about some LSU basketball getting back on the floor tonight. Falling to South Carolina over the weekend. That was the spot where you thought LSU could maybe win. We'll talk to Jacques about what their chances are tonight with Jerry Stackhouse and Vanderbilt in town. Vandy been playing really well here over the last couple of weeks. And Alabama, who is considered to be the top overall seed in college basketball heading into March, was rocked yesterday by a huge story. I don't know how much effect this will have on the floor, but this is going to be a story that hovers around this program for the remainder of the season, as Brandon Miller, their for sure lottery pick, seems like a bona fide top 3 pick, was attached to that story that came out of Tuscaloosa in mid-January that had a former player, Darius Miles, involved in a murder with Ja'Mai Jones Harris down in Tuscaloosa. Brandon Miller, who is the lottery pick, the guy, he dropped off the gun to the scene of the crime. He brought the gun after Miles text messaged him to bring the gun over. I'm not a legal expert. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know, how this ties into a crime. I know that a crime was committed with that gun minutes after Miller was there. In fact, Miller had 2 gunshots in his car door that was still at the scene that went down. So this is not a good story. And then Nate Oates seemingly made it a little bit worse yesterday when he was asked, because this all came out Tuesday morning during a hearing stemming from that capital murder charge where Darius Miles, the former Alabama basketball player, was in court for a bond hearing, and he testified that he texted Miller to bring the gun to Miles and his friend Michael Davis, who Davis later retrieved the weapon out of Miles's car and ended up pulling the trigger and shooting Harris. So Oates was asked about it yesterday, and he came out and said, "We knew about that. Can't control everything anybody does outside of practice. Nobody knew that was going to happen. College kids are out. Brandon hasn't been in any type of trouble, nor is he any type of trouble in this case. Wrong spot at the wrong time." This did not play well, obviously. This did not go over well.
Wrong place at the wrong time, and he dropped off the gun?
The victim's family. This was a statement that was met with a lot of pushback. In fact, Oates had to issue an apology last night saying, "This entire time I've tried to be thoughtful in my words relative to this tragic incident, and my statements came across poorly," he said in his statement yesterday. He also apologized to the victim in this case, Ja'Mai Harris, who lost her life on January 15th. Like I said, I don't know what happens. Miller has played the entire time since this story, and Oates admitted they knew that he was there, so I don't know if it affects him on the floor, but it's going to be a story that they're going to have to answer a lot of questions for now, as it's going to hover over one of the top teams in college basketball's head for the next couple of weeks as we get into March. So we'll talk more about that. Doug Thompson here next as we get back to LSU baseball. Tigers roll over Southern last night on the road for the first time this season. What does Dougie see from the number 1 team in the country next here on the Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered by Go Chevrolet?
Donaldsonville Glass and Body, the trusted name in frame, body, and automotive paint repair since 1977. They have served their customers for over 45 years. You can find them online at dgbauto.com or stop in and see them Railroad Avenue and Division Street out in Donaldsonville, Louisiana. Look, they can help you with your insurance claims. They can make the repair process as stress-free as possible. I'm speaking from experience here. I've got numerous windshields, body repair, all done by Kenny and the crew over at Donaldsonville Glass and Body. They are, without question, the most well-equipped shop in the area. Stop in and see them today. Shop them online, dgbauto.com, or stop in and see the crew over in Division Street in Donaldsonville, Louisiana. Donaldsonville Glass and Body.
Red Stick Sports, a local staple in Baton Rouge to all sports fans, was founded back in 1981 and has remained a family business for over 40 years. Today, they still have the great selection on the floor, but they're also a leader in custom apparel for businesses, sports teams, and other groups. Take it from us, everybody over here at FM Digital Media. They help us out with all of our apparel. Let them help you out today. Go ask for Cody over at Red Stick Sports. Check him out online at redsticksports.biz. I was embarrassed about my smile. Are you unhappy at yours? Do you not smile back at yourself? I called my friend, Dr. Spillers, over at Johnson Spillers. He fixed my smile, and now everywhere I go, people are complimenting it after the work that Dr. Spillers and the staff did to my mouth. They can do it to yours. Get in touch with them. JohnsonSpillers.com. 2 locations, one in Gonzales, one in Baton Rouge. Easy to find them, JohnsonSpillers.com.
We're all from different places and backgrounds. We've each experienced our own versions of life, but in the end, we're all on the same team. I'm part of that team, along with these players in purple and gold.
Kayshawn Buddha,
Malik Neighbors,
Miles Frazier,
Kyron Lacy,
Greg Brooks. Whether on the field or in the courtroom, your team matters.
So join our team. Make a difference.
Bet. Let's get it done.
All right, remember every Thursday our conversations with Chris Blair. Blair will be in studio with us talking a little LSU baseball, LSU basketball. Tigers on the wood tonight as Vanderbilt's in town to take on LSU. That'll be at the Maravich Center. It was good to hear Chris Blair last night working back with his broadcast partner Doug Thompson on LSU baseball calls as the Tigers roll last night 18-4 after a very impressive opening weekend as well. We got our first look at Christian Little. We saw Trey Morgan experience a piece of history last night. We also saw Thatcher Hurd get some early work. So lots to talk about with Doug Thompson here on the Jordy Culotta Show, who comes back with us here for baseball season. Always good to link up with our friend DT9. Dougie, good morning. How are you, buddy?
Morning, JC. How are you? How's everybody at the studio today?
Everybody doing good. A little quiet around here. Katie's doing some college visits with kids. Lloyd's still under a suspension with his return still under review. So it's just me and Stewie here, day after here on this Ash Wednesday.
Yeah. Don't forget to get your ashes today.
That's right, Dougie. Doug, LSU baseball was hyped up all season and all off season and all spring, all winter. And then the first 4 games we've seen them, they look like the number 1 team in the country. What has been your big takeaway from seeing LSU here early on?
Well, I think the biggest thing that kind of jumps out is the depth. Not only the number of guys that are able to swing the bat, get the job done out of the dugout, but on the mound specifically. We've seen Christian Little now twice in relief. I really like what we saw with him. There's been multiple guys that have come out of the bullpen, flaunting 94+ mile-an-hour fastballs. With great off-speed pitches. So this year, the depth as a team is pretty remarkable, and it goes both ways for offense and defense.
Paul Skeens was named SEC Player of the Week for his performance on Friday. You have been in that role. What did you see from Skeens as a frontline starter?
Man, I mean, this kid has no business anywhere close to a college baseball field. That night, his first 4 fastballs of the game were 99 miles an hour. If he would have been in, Tampa or some other spring training site, facing the New York Yankees, it would have been all they wanted that night as well. I mean, it was electric. He pitches. He's not a thrower. When he misses small. He misses intentionally. His fastball, it stayed 97 plus, maybe a couple 95, 96s, but slider's just a wipeout slider. It starts on the hip of a right-handed hitter and breaks to the outside part of the plate. And we saw a couple change-ups, but I was at lunch with Coach Johnson a couple weeks ago, and I asked him about Skeen's hitting, and he said if he was an everyday player, he'd hit 25 home runs this year. And I asked him, well, how much will he hit? And he said he won't. He's just too valuable pitching. And it was hard for me to comprehend that, that a guy that has the ability to hit 25 bolts, he's too valuable to put in there because of his pitching. It was hard for me to understand it until I saw Skeen's pitch. He is way too valuable to take a fastball off the knuckle on a swing or something like that and be out 3 weeks. I'm going to be surprised if he loses this year. Of course, everybody has a bad night, right? So excluding the bad night or just an off night that we're all granted as human beings, I just don't see Paul Skeens losing if he's got his good stuff out there.
What did you make of the rest of the weekend in the arms, the rest of the rotation?
Deep, man. Deep. I mean, we saw some familiar faces, Garrett Edwards, Blake Money, but we saw Ackenhausen. Of course, we saw Christian Little. And some others that were just really, really good pitching this year. I mean, every single guy that came out, even the kid yesterday, I think it was Herring's his last name, I think. Hadn't seen him yet, hadn't heard much about him, but I'm reading his bio, and he's like, the number 1 pitcher coming out of Texas. He basically never lost in Dallas, won a 6A championship. And, I mean, he just threw 4 pitches yesterday at 93, 94 miles an hour, a lefty, and he was in and out of the game pretty quickly. But, I mean, again, Garrett Edwards came in. He was at 95 miles an hour yesterday. So lots of depth. And thank goodness for that, because the loss of Grant Taylor at the beginning of the year, if this were last year, Chris and I were talking about this weekend, if this were 2022 and we lose our Saturday starter, I don't even think we end up in Hattiesburg at the end.
The lineup, Doug, is, an embarrassing of riches of talent. They lost White for the weekend on Friday, sliding back and dislocated his shoulder. I don't think they believe he'll be out for an extended amount of time, a long amount of time. What do you make of the offense?
Dude, again, the word is deep. I mean, it's very similar. It reminds me a lot of the teams that I played on, where 1 through 6 is just a total nightmare for any opposing pitcher. That's what it reminds me a lot of, is those type teams. And, Southern, by the way, Coach Crenshaw's got Southern on the right tracks. And yesterday they took a 4-0 lead on LSU. But I'll tell you, that score ended up the way it used to end up, back in those gorilla ball days, if you will. And that was only 7 innings. I mean, if they'd have played a couple more innings, LSU might have scored another 10 runs or so. So plenty of offensive firepower, lots of veteran leadership. And then you've got some newcomers that look really impressive as well. Jared Jones is a monster. I mean, this kid is a monster. Reminds me of Brad Cressy. Not only does he wear number 22, but he's 6'4", 230 pounds, and he's got serious power. He hit a home run yesterday. Honestly, I thought it was more the fly ball home run trajectory, like where it was going to just land in the deck, in the diamond deck out in left center field. It was so high. Exactly, Jordy. Right. And my eyeballs, I'm watching the fans to see exactly, what row it lands in. And the next thing you know, it hits up about 8-10 feet short of the top of the scoreboard. And I'm talking about like the right side, the right top of the scoreboard, not the left side. 467 feet. And honestly, I really don't think he got it all. He missed it a little bit, but I'm telling you, this kid has super, super juice. And when Tommy White comes back, which they're hoping, I think, to get him back in that DH spot at least this weekend, like you said, you couldn't have said it better. It's just an abundance of riches. And, like everybody else who's wanting to, take the road to Omaha this year or challenge that road, they just have to stay healthy, man, because they've got a great shot to do it.
Brady Neal seems like the everyday guy behind the dish. What do you make of him?
I like him. I like his arm. Not quite the arm of Alex Milazzo, but he's a pretty good defender. He's not scared to throw the ball behind runners, which I really love watching a catcher do that. And he really can swing the bat. Had a rough day yesterday. He was 0 for 4. But over the weekend, specifically, I don't know if it was his first at bat. Maybe it was his first at bat. One of his first couple at bats. The win on Friday night or Friday during the day was miserable. Nobody would have wanted to hit there. It was cold. The wind was howling in. And he hit a ball through that, right into the middle of that wind, actually, that hit the middle of the right center field wall, one of the deepest parts of the ballpark. So I see it. I certainly see it. But he hasn't really quite got going yet. I think he's only had one hit so far. But you can see it, that he can swing the bat a little bit. I really do like him defensively. But speaking of an abundance of riches, he's got 3 or 4 guys that can go back there and catch, which is much different than what happened last year. So, no, the catching spot's as strong as can be. Look, to win a national championship, you have to have 2 pitchers that can go out there and win you 10 games or so. You have to have a strong defense, specifically up the middle, which it looks like we do. And you have to have some veterans in that lineup, which we do. So all of the, in my opinion, key ingredients for a solid trip to Omaha or an Omaha run, they're there today, 4 games into the season. They're all there today. Again, man, it's just that injury bug. Got to keep it out of that locker room at all costs.
Because the number that jumped after the opening weekend was 0 errors, when comparing to last year, right?
Yeah, still no errors. They no errors yesterday. That's 4 games in a row. Yes, and again, when I did have lunch with Coach, that was one of the things that jumped off for him. That he was certain that we would see a different defensive ball club this year, and so far so good.
Doug, last night you were on a call on a night that will be referenced in the history of LSU baseball as Trey Morgan goes for the cycle. It's the first time it's been done since 2010, but he does it a little differently as he gets the natural cycle. You're a baseball guy. You've seen a ton of games. How, I guess, how uncommon is that? And what did you make of Morgan's night?
14 times in the history of Major League Baseball has the cycle been hit for in order. That's 30 teams playing for a couple 100 years or 150 years or so. When I left the box yesterday, they were still kind of searching to see if that had been done in the history of LSU baseball. I'm betting it hasn't. And to answer your question, I don't think I've ever seen that. Wow. Maybe a night or two in the minor leagues that, they all run together when you play 150 games, in Ames, Iowa. But, it kind of snuck up on us too. I have to be honest. I really didn't think about it when Trey hit the triple. Usually when somebody hits a triple, I check that, on my scorebook, and I didn't even really think about it. And Chris, when he was making the home run call, it hit me like, oh my goodness, this is extremely extraordinary. And it was just a special day. I love baseball, man. Every time you go to the ballpark, there's a chance you're going to see something you've never seen before.
Doug, you mentioned it, and when you guys got off the bus in '97, you had a lot of teams beat. Y'all were big. You almost looked like a football team getting off the bus. It was just a different looking baseball squad. LSU, for the first time in a long time, they have that physical feel to them where they almost have this intimidating. You mentioned Jared Jones. Skeens is an animal. They got guys with like facial hair back on the team. It seems like it's a different looking squad.
Lots of human being in that dugout, bro. Big guy. Chase Shores is 6'8", Skeens is 6'6". Jared Jones 6'4", 230. There are just some massive people in there. I don't like to walk down on the field before the games. I feel too short, so I just stand over there by the coaches. They're all closer to my height. But yeah, you got to think twice before clearing the dugouts with this LSU team. Very reminiscent of some of those late '90s teams where guys look like Boudin in their uniforms. They were so tight. Lots of big guys, very intimidating, and I hope that plays. It certainly I think did have a factor back in those days, the intimidation factor. And then, it's one thing before the game, the guys look over there and see massive human beings, but it really sets in the second inning when there's already a couple home runs that have left the yard. Becomes real then. And I think this team's got that type of potential. I mean, they are going to absolutely murder average pitching this year. They're going to destroy average pitching this year. So, man, it's exciting, dude. I love LSU baseball, as you know. So many people do. And there's something about it this year, Jordy, you already mentioned it, really. Lots of excitement. It's very, very reminiscent of the type of chatter back when I was a player at LSU in the late 90s, when they were on that just incredible run of 5 championships in 10 years. And, I think Jay Johnson has got a great squad here, and I'm excited to watch the rest of the season, as I'm sure so many other Tiger fans are.
Dougie, if I recall, you went a size small, too small, right, on the pants?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, of course.
Right,
I mean, it was part of the gig back then. There wasn't a whole lot of baggy uniform wearing back then. It was a little bit different, but yeah, no, it was definitely a different time. There, everybody on the team weighed over 200 pounds, and this team might actually pound for pound be bigger than any team that I played on in LSU for sure.
Last one, I'll get you out of here. You know anything about this weekend? They play Kansas State first. This is one of these preseason or kind of pre-conference tournaments. Obviously, LSU is intimidating a lot of people with the way that they're playing right now, but anything about the competition that you expect?
No, I really haven't. I'm not going to Texas. I really have no idea. It's going to be a great trip. And it's going to be a chance for LSU to really put the flag in the ground, if you will, if they run through Texas as dominant as they just opened up these first 4 games. And I did want to talk about Thatcher Hurd too. Yesterday he was kind of a Jekyll and Hyde. At the beginning, he couldn't throw strikes. This guy last year threw 38 innings at UCLA, had 10 walks, had a 1.06 ERA. Like, he was really good, and he really threw strikes. Everyone I asked at the box what to expect, they said strikes. I mean, from the SID to some guys wearing uniforms, down on the field, it was going to be strikes. And so I was shocked to see 3 walks in the first 2 innings. I think Thatcher Hurd was as well. But then he made an adjustment in the 3rd inning, and he really started to throw strikes in that 2nd and 3rd inning. And the problem was then that he was throwing too many strikes. He was focused on just getting it over the plate. And Southern, it's not like they lit him up. They hit 3 or 4 CNI singles, and he was chased out of the game. But I'm going to go on record as saying, I think Thatcher Hurd's going to be a dude. I think he's got good stuff. He was 94, got up to 95, 96 miles an hour. I liked his off-speed pitch. I think that yesterday, we've talked about this before on your show, when you make your debut in the purple and gold, the first thing you have to be able to accomplish is the ability to breathe and just relax and be able to, do what you do out there. And I could tell that he just couldn't get that part under his belt yesterday. But I really do think Thatcher Hurd's got a shot to be a big factor for this team down the stretch.
Great to hear from you, Dougie. Keep up the great work. Good listening to you and Chris last night on the call, and we'll talk again soon, man.
All right, bro. Talk to you soon. Y'all have a good one.
There he is. Doug Thompson checking in from the LSU Sports Radio Network. Remember, you can catch him and Chris Blair on home games as they will be, Doug, as he said, not making the trip to Round Rock this weekend for the Round Rock Classic, but we'll always listen to him when he's on the call here locally. Remember, RMB Builders, Rhett Bourgeois, RMB Builders. They have a fantastic social media and Instagram presence that you can check out all of their what they have going on. Anything that you may be looking for with RMB Builders, rmb-builders.com is where you find them online. rmb-builders.com is where you find them online. But as we said, social media, easiest place to hit them. Hit them on Instagram, and they've got all of their projects. Whether you're looking for a brand new home built from scratch, your dream home, they can handle that for you at RMB Builders. They can also handle any type of addition that you may be looking to take care of, any type of reconstruction that you may be interested in. And remember, this is commercial and residential jobs. So if you need something done around the office, it's all good. Rhett Bourgeois and his staff can help you out. Check out RMB Builders on Instagram. We will talk to Brody Miller coming up here at 8 o'clock. We're also going to talk to Jacques Doucet coming up at 8:15. It is Wednesday, which means that if you got some questions, you have some voicemails, if you have some text messages, if you want to call in, you can. I was thinking about holding it for tomorrow with Katie when she gets back. This is usually a segment that she likes to interact with, is the voicemails and the phone calls. She's still on her college trip with the kids as they are touring Tennessee. They went from Vanderbilt to Knoxville.
Vandy to Rocky Top.
Yeah, they went to a couple of the headliners in Tennessee. Also did a couple of days in Nashville, which is a fantastic spot and a beautiful city. So Katie expected back here tomorrow from the holiday, as we will be with you through the weekend, obviously. And as we have told you, don't forget Mic'd Up. Mikey Matuk is a must-listen Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Obviously, a fantastic listen all year long, but must-listen during baseball season as him and Jared Mitchell are breaking it down. It'll be interesting to see what they say about last night's offensive explosion. Morgan accomplishing something since, the only last player to do it was Matuk back in 2010 when Matuk went for the cycle in a non-conference game. Morgan last night goes for the natural cycle. That was good conversation with Doug Thompson. If you have not already, please do hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the comment button if you'd like to comment on the post. We appreciate that. But the likes and shares really help us out. So if you can do that before you get out of here. And if you are not a subscriber to the show, please do that while we take this quick break and come back with you for the top of the hour. We'll have a lot more news, a lot more conversation. As we said, it'll be Brody Miller stopping by here at 8 o'clock, and we'll also talk to Jacques in studio at 8:15. If you have a question, comment, text message, voicemail, and you want to get out before we head out of here, line them up. We'll get to them before we bounce. Appreciate you being here. Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered by Go Chevrolet.
Hey Baton Rouge, when traveling through Natchez, Mississippi, whether you need to fill up your vehicle or your belly, stop by Go-Mart and On The Go Deli. Go-Mart has clean restrooms, community coffee, an awesome beer cave, and a great selection of anything you might need on your trip. So stop by Go-Mart at 4 Sergeant Prentice Drive as you're entering Natchez on the left, and visit Tom and Wright Granning and their awesome team at Go-Mart.
In a wreck, Gordon McKernan Injury Attorneys is ready to go to work for you. Come meet your team.
I'm your intake specialist. I coordinate your case and connect you with your attorney and paralegal.
That's us, your legal team.
Thanks. And we'll fight to get you every dollar you deserve.
I'm your settlements and disbursement manager, and I'm here to get you paid on time.
I'm attorney Gordon McKernan. Put our team to work today. Just call us. Get it done.
Are you looking for sound financial advice? Then get in touch with Daniel Newman of Edward Jones. You can call him today at 225-261-8262 or email him daniel.newman@edwardjones.com. If you're planning for retirement, saving for college for children or grandchildren, or just looking for sound investment opportunities, get in touch with Daniel today, 225-261-8262, located on Magnolia Square Drive in Central. Daniel Newman of Edward Jones. Fourier Insurance Agency, established in 1946, locally can help you with any of your home, auto, commercial, contractors, life and health insurance today. Give them a call, 225-383-0682, or log online to FourierAgency.com.
In a wreck, Gordon McKernan Injury Attorneys is ready to go to work for you. Come meet your team.
I'm your intake specialist. I coordinate your case and connect you with your attorney and paralegal.
That's us, your legal team.
Thanks. And we'll fight to get you every dollar you deserve.
I'm your settlements and disbursement manager, and I'm here to get you paid on time.
I'm attorney Gordon McKernan. Put our team to work today. Just call us. Get it done.
Question in that game. You're listening to the Jordy Culotta Show live on YouTube. Catch it every day, 7 to 9 a.m., wherever you have internet access.
Oh, my guy, the host of Mac and Cube.
You said you wanted me to close it out.
I listen to his pod every day on WJOX 94. I thought I was going to beat Charlie. I didn't. You were fantastic as always. Have a great call in Missouri. I'll see you soon, man.
Thanks, man. Good
Later.
talking to you, Jordy.
Always. There he is. Cole Kublik, the absolute best. Don't overthink it, ABC. When you move to a primetime slot and the SEC is getting that billing, make this man the color commentator. He's the absolute best.
Ooh, I mean, what a pro.
What a pro.
I remember telling them, hey, listen, my job here is to make sure that we bring, big time football to a small town environment, right? And so you see on movies sometimes about the way a town reacts to the football program and what it means to everybody. And that was the hopes and dreams that I had for the place. And so our kids take a distinct responsibility in wearing that Z on their helmet. It means a lot to them. And then on the flip side of that, our community does a tremendous job of supporting our program, supporting the athletic department, supporting our school as a whole. And there's really a great relationship there that's a lot of fun to be a part of.
Thank you for the access, man. Looking forward to tonight. We'll talk soon.
Coach, wait, before you go, fix your hair again one more time.
Look at him.
Let's go.
Yes.
Here.
Look at him.
What do you think about that?
Game day,
what do you
baby.
think about that?
Game day. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it, man. Great to see you. Thank you.
You too, guys. I appreciate it. Y'all have a great day.
All right, man. There he is. There he is. My guy. David Brewerton checking in. What does Harold Perkins do for this defense? What does he allow you guys to do?
Yeah, Perk, man, he's just so raw, man. Like, all he know how to do is make a play. But I love him. He brings a certain type of juice to the defense, and he's right alongside of me on the edge. He knows how to rush the edge. As a young guy, that's very valuable to the defense, being able to rush the edge, making the quarterback step up. But yeah, they put him everywhere, middle linebacker, outside rusher, maybe sometimes he's going to be in a drop. So he's very versatile for our defense.
All right, welcome back here to the Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered by Go Chevrolet. As always, remember to hit up our friends at Go Chevrolet online at GEAUXChevrolet.com, GEAUXChevrolet.com. Whether you're in the market for a brand new truck, if you're looking for a used truck, they got great selections over at Go. LaPlace, Louisiana, and also dealerships up in Tennessee, GEAUXChevrolet.com. Always our phone line brought to you by Metropolitan Health Group, Real Doctors, Real Solutions. Thanks to Charlie Harvey and Jason Ramazan, and thanks to Doug Thompson for stopping by. Brody Miller going to be here at 8:30 this morning. That's my fault. I had him scheduled for 8:30, and I was promoting 8 a.m. So my fault. If you were waiting on Brody Miller at 8 o'clock, he'll be here in 30 minutes. So stick around with us. Hit that like button, that share button, that comment button, if you don't mind, as we've talked a little bit about some of the headline stories since we've been out and since we've been away, including LSU football. Malik Neighbors getting in a little trouble in New Orleans over the weekend. He was picked up on a gun charge down in Mardi Gras, and he's out of jail. It should be – look, I don't anticipate a ton of fallout here. some people within the chat were thinking that he was going to miss a game. That would surprise me if he missed on the field action. First, he means too much to the offense, and this is a crime that, look, I by no means am I promoting, by no means am I saying and advocating for this, but if you're going down to New Orleans and you're heading down there for a celebration, or if you're heading down there for a big party, you got to protect yourself, man. I mean, like, it's a war zone. I mean, and by no means am I taking shots over here from a glass house. I know that Baton Rouge is from a crime standpoint is per capita on target with what New Orleans is producing. None of the cities and the leadership are taking care of that element of of the area. So I'm not apologizing for Malik Neighbors. I just expect him to run some stadiums, and he should get the message.
A little bit of punish work. All right.
Yeah, a little bit. You know what I mean? You don't want the negative attention.
Yeah, you did something dumb.
Right?
Now you got to pay for it.
It's not ideal, but it's also somebody with status that's going down to an area that is riddled in crime. I mean,
understandable.
If he's telling me that he believes he needs to pack that to keep himself alive, going to New Orleans, who's going to argue? It won't be me, so I don't want to get into it. I think that Malik Neighbors will not miss a down of football for LSU coming up in the fall. And if he does, it might be a series. But like I said, I mean, he's wide receiver 1 on this team going into spring. I think him and Brian Thomas could possibly battle it out who's going to be the number 1 target. But either way, he's on the field every down. And he's somebody that you got to take account for every play. And he's somebody that, you can't really leave behind. You can't have him missing games. The other big story around LSU football is that special teams coordinator Brian Polian is being moved to an off-the-field position with the football program, which university officials confirmed on Tuesday. Polian has been overseeing the special teams department, also has the recruiting coordinator on his title. I think that this is a move that is going to shift him out of both roles. We already know that from a special teams coordinator spot that he is no longer there, and really I think that the recruiting coordinator title is just really kind of it doesn't mean much. By no means do I believe that Brian Polian is having any say-so within the recruiting department of evaluation, targets, and who they should go after. They just got a top 5 class. I know they did. Brian Polian had little to do with it. Very little to do with it. That is a very talented recruiting staff and a very talented developmental staff on the field. Kelly has done a phenomenal job of putting a staff together in his first season that really is good combination of recruiters and teachers. There was one outlier when you looked at the staff as a whole that just kind of felt, it felt like a square in a peg. It didn't really fit. Polian just didn't really fit. And I'm not trying to bang on him. I'm not trying to pile on. I'm not trying to, by any means, mention that it was say that it was a disaster. I think there were some learning things to it. But at this level of college football, at this level of the SEC and commitment to winning, you cannot hire your friends. It's just, it was the death of Les Miles, and you could even point to scenarios with Ed Ogeron where he wouldn't adapt and move past people that really could help the program without feeling like he had to protect himself with people that he knew, with people that were familiar with him, that people that wouldn't step on toes. Les Miles did a lot of friend hiring because he knew that he would get exposed if he really brought outside talent in. I mean, think about it. When Dave Aranda showed up, even when Ed Ogeron showed up, they were like, this is not going to work. You know, I mean, if you want somebody of like Aranda's caliber, you can't have him, you know, in the building with, you know, a frat house. And, you know, Kelly, in his first staff, you looked all over it. And I mean, this guy reached all over the country to put his first staff together. There was one guy and one name and, you know, one track record of a resume that just didn't make a lot of sense. And that's Brian Polian. And I think that the margin of error for, you know, being a have and a have not in the SEC comes down to a very fine line. Comes down to a very, very granular, you know, piece of the program that, you know, if you're doing someone a favor, if you're not, you know, trying your best to be elite, well, teams like Alabama, Georgia, you know, people that are using their resources, Tennessee, to get the most out of the program will, you know, they'll pass you by. And LSU has a brand, they have a budget, and they have a bottom line that says they should be a player every single year in football, in college football. They've got all of what it takes to be a national contender year in, year out. They should be fighting for a playoff spot every single season when it comes down to coaches, players, recruiting ground, facilities, support staff, budget, all the stuff that matters in college football. LSU checks every single box. There's special teams coordinators from every corner of this country that would walk to Baton Rouge to coach the special teams unit at LSU. Not only because of the price tag, like we mentioned, of what they will pay, but what you can put on your resume and what you can put on film and elevate your career. I mean, think of the players you have to choose from as a special teams coordinator at LSU. Everybody's pretty much in play. Wide receivers, defensive backs, linebackers. I mean, think about those units alone. Defensive ends, safeties, DBs. I mean, guys that you can walk into the room and say, I'll take him, I'll take him, I'll take him, and I'll take him. I mean, give me all the 5 stars. You know, I mean, like it's I don't want to downplay it. It's you got to show up, you got to do the gig, you got to watch the film, you got to prepare, you got to put the guys in the position to succeed. But I mean, we're not rewriting nuclear code here. I mean, you got a lot of talented football players that need to cover a kick. So, I mean, it's a job that I think will have a ton of interest in. A ton of intrigue. We'll talk about it with Brody Miller coming up here. Jacques just walked in from WAFB. He's here every Wednesday. Give me a minute to reset. We'll be right back here with Jacques from WAFB, our news partner. Remember to download the WAFB 9 app and keep up with your sports news with WAFB. We'll be right back quick. We'll be real quick. Don't go anywhere. Jacques will be right back with us when we come back here on the Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered by Go Chevrolet.
Hey, Baton Rouge, when traveling through Natchez, Mississippi, whether you need to fill up your vehicle or your belly, stop by Go-Mart and On The Go Deli. Go-Mart has clean restrooms, community coffee, an awesome beer cave, and a great selection of anything you might need on your trip. So stop by Go-Mart at 4 Sergeant Prentice Drive as you're entering Natchez on the left, and visit Tom and Wright Granning and their awesome team at Go-Mart.
In a wreck, Gordon McKernan Injury Attorneys is ready to go to work for you. Come meet your team.
I'm your intake specialist. I coordinate your case and connect you with your attorney and paralegal.
That's us, your legal team.
Thanks. And we'll fight to get you every dollar you deserve.
I'm your settlements and disbursement manager, and I'm here to get you paid on time.
I'm attorney Gordon McKernan. Put our team to work today. Just call us. Get it done.
Are you looking for sound financial advice? Then get in touch with Daniel Newman of Edward Jones. You can call him today at 225-261-8262 or email him daniel.newman@edwardjones.com. If you're planning for retirement, saving for college for children or grandchildren, or just looking for sound investment opportunities, get in touch with Daniel today, 225-261-8262, located on Magnolia Square Drive in Central. Daniel Newman of Edward Jones. 48 Insurance Agency, established in 1946, locally can help you with any of your home, auto, commercial, contractors, life and health insurance today. Give them a call, 225-383-0682, or log online to 48agency.com. Here at the Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered by Go Chevrolet. Remember our friends over at R&B Builders. Make sure and hit them on Instagram. Give us a like and a share here, as if you have not subscribed on YouTube, please make sure and do. Every Wednesday, we hook up with Jacques Doucet, our WAFB 9 news partner from down the street. Remember, 9 Sports, you can catch that on the WAFB app. You can also catch the Jordy Culotta Show on WAFB.com/Jordy if you're looking for an outlet over there as well. Jacques, good to see you. Good morning. Happy Mardi Gras.
Happy beginning of Lent, I guess. Happy Mardi Gras. Hopefully everyone had a good one out there. Nice and safe.
Ash Wednesday.
Ash Wednesday, that's correct. Yep. I'm going to try to give up beer and wine. Try to give up alcohol.
I'm going social media, JD.
You give up social media?
Giving up social media.
You know what? When I got suspended from Twitter for tweeting out copyrighted music, I found that it was good for me in a lot of ways.
Soothing, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Takes you out of the traffic.
And just a lot of negativity that you don't need to be a part of.
Right.
You know, makes you live your life a little bit more.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. I'm really and truly, I'm kind of looking forward to it. I deactivated my accounts at like 4 a.m. this morning.
Good.
I just went with Facebook and Instagram. Twitter means so much to us in this world. News, followers, people that are looking for breaking news. I mean, I'm so dependent on Twitter. It's become like a newspaper to me. You know, it's like a modern day newspaper where you can reference information. So I don't know if I can, just in the position that I'm in, I don't know if I can really give Twitter up.
Well, I mean, I've rightfully been criticized for tweeting too much. It's been too much time on there over the years. But honestly, I pretty much use it now to share information, to get information out in real time quickly. But in terms of like trying to engage in debates or argue and stuff, it is just, it's a poor medium for it.
Absolutely.
And then, you know, what you feel passionate about in the moment, a day later, I'm tired of talking about that, but the notifications are still going. So, yeah. And there's so much violence on there, too. Now, I don't know if some of the people I'm following, but like these sites like Fight Haven and stuff like that put up these people fighting in McDonald's or whatever. It's just a lot of bad stuff on there. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't really like scroll Twitter. You know what I mean? Like, I don't sit there and just kind of like get lost in Twitter. I can do that on Instagram. You know what I mean? Like, I can sit there and just kind of like...
Or YouTube.
Yeah, right. I can just kind of like just swipe and you're like, damn, man, it's like 20 minutes later. You know, like I've like wasted a lot of time just sitting here doing nothing. So I'm giving that up. I'm giving up Facebook. I'm giving up Instagram. I don't really do TikTok. I don't do you know what I mean? I don't have a TikTok account.
I feel like I'm too old for that. Although I think I could be good at it with impression and being funny and stuff.
You could.
But I haven't done it.
All right, LSU basketball. They fall on Saturday versus South Carolina, and then they are at home tonight versus Vanderbilt. I'm not looking to pile on. I don't want to talk about, you know, what is there anything that they can take away from this first year? Is there anything that you can? I mean, I've tried to find a silver lining, and I'm not, I don't want to beat them down because I understand that they're struggling. But is there anything that you can take away?
Well, the highlight of the year is before they started conference play. They had some close games against teams that they would normally blow out, which was a warning sign. But they did have the close game against Kansas State, who's now in the top 15. So people wonder, okay, how could they digress so much? Or how could they? On one hand, you say, okay, Coach McMahon has inherited an awful situation. On the other hand, you say, how can they be so bad?
Yeah.
How could they lose this many games in a row? How can they basically get beat by double digits at home to South Carolina, a team who is likewise one of the worst in the country? And so, talking to some people over there, they said, after they came out, they won that Arkansas game, which I think Arkansas was down by 2 starters or something like that. And then they go on the road, they play that tight game at Kentucky, and they're like, this team is competitive, they're doing a good job. Then they had that loss at Texas A&M, and then the home loss to Florida was one where a lot of people were like, this was trouble. You got to win this game considering who's coming up. So I was telling you off the air, I was on campus Saturday to shoot the team getting on the bus, the women's team, to go to Gainesville. It's 11:15, 11:20 on campus before noon tip-off, and it felt like a Monday of people going to class. And from what I told, the actual attendance just north of 2,000. And your other sports are simply too good. Your baseball team is too good. Your women's basketball is too good. Your gymnastics team won their biggest meet of the year against Florida. Your softball team's off to an 11-0 start. Track and field has always been great at LSU. So people are just going to move on to other stuff. I think they've pretty much decided that this year is going nowhere fast, and they're into other sports now. So I think people were who's going to be on the roster next year and who's he bringing in. I think that's where all the focus is, honestly.
Ladies basketball they play Vanderbilt tomorrow night as they travel. They're going to Nashville, and they'll end the season on the road as well. But the South Carolina nearly fell at Ole Miss last weekend. Following that contest, you could see a lot of the emotion that they had spent during that LSU game.
Yeah.
Where do you think this team is heading into this part of the schedule? It's tourney time, and you're kind of getting ready for that.
Well, all the projections have them as a number 2 seed at the moment. I don't know if there's any scenario that they can get a number 1 seed in the tournament. UConn has been struggling lately. SEC tournaments, what do they mean? I mean, even if LSU would beat South Carolina somehow in the SEC tournament, would that get them a number 1 seed? I remember very specifically Will Wade talking about SEC tournaments and what they meant. And was it 2 years ago? They made it all the way to the conference finals. They played Alabama.
That's right.
Trended Wofford had that huge game, and they lost by 1 point. Yeah. And I remember Coach Wade saying, our NCAA tournament seed was decided on Friday. It didn't matter if we would have won the SEC tournament. It didn't matter. They had already decided where we were seated. So at this point, it certainly seems like LSU is going to be a number 2 seed. They were a number 3 seed last year, but really this time around, they'd be like the 5th best team in the country. And we'll be hosting 2 rounds of the tournament. And it's different this year too, Jordy, in which I think all the teams are either going to Greenville, South Carolina, or they're going to Seattle in the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 before the Final Four in Dallas. So that's a little bit different. But, they've been able to win ugly sometimes, but 25-1 and Kim Mulkey 51-7 since she took over. I agree with what she said. February is a tough month. Everyone's tired. But once they get that 1 week break, it's kind of a reset button, second wind, and you're going into March Madness full speed ahead.
Yeah. Angel Reese named SEC Player of the Week for her performances over the last couple of games. It's good to see her kind of not catching her stride again. Not that she lost it, but she had an outlying game against South Carolina. It was by the numbers standpoint.
Yeah. Well, I think there was one stretch where she, over 6 games, including the South Carolina, she was shooting about 40% from the field. And she was humbled in that South Carolina game. I mean, South Carolina's got some monsters in the post, and they blocked her shot, and she struggled. But then the next game against Ole Miss, I mean, she literally took over the game. Yeah. I think LSU scored 69 points, and she had 36 of them and 20 rebounds. It was a monstrous performance. And then this past Sunday against Florida, she had a great game. Jasmine Carson was unconscious from 3-point range, made 7 3-pointers. So, Angel's a star. I mean, she is a true superstar, and I'm wondering when it's all said and done on the women's basketball Mount Rushmore at LSU, if you're talking about, Simone, Sylvia, Tamika, and putting Angel Reese up there too. And then back in the days, Joyce Walker, in the 80s, who might be the best player in LSU history from what I've heard. Steve Schneider said she'd go out and scrap with the guys and kick their butt too. I mean, she was averaging, I think, 25 points a game or whatever back then. But yeah, Angel Reese, and LSU is promoting things on their LSU Gold and through their media as well to say, hey, it's okay for girls to be pretty, for them to be, beautiful, and then be athletes as well. And Angel's talked about that. And, there's a lot of great stuff on this team when you got a Flage as well, who is known by many people as being a talented rapper and now a true freshman player. And then you got an iconic coach to boot in Kim Mulkey. They've got a lot of star power on the team.
Speaking of star power, and one that has lived up to the early reputation of the offseason is LSU baseball, as they are a very impressive 4-0 SEC Player of the Week. Paul Skeens, who is their frontline starter. Their offense have shown just a massive amount of depth in the sense of they are embarrassingly talented.
Yeah.
No errors in the opening weekend. What have you seen? I know you're making the trip to Round Rock, right?
Making the trip to Round Rock. I understand you're still upset about the game being moved to 3 o'clock Friday.
Yeah. Oh my God.
Look, I was walking out of that park after the game. I realized we need to be
shining, huh?
Yeah. I realized we need to be tough and all that, but it was brutal. First day, pretty cold. But yeah, Paul Skeens lives up to it. First start. Riley Cooper, perhaps a surprise to many, getting the Saturday start. He was tremendous. The true freshman Shores on Sunday was nervous. He's a true freshman. Look, first time going out there, he had the nerves a little bit. Thatcher Hurd is the first problem to fix. This is the first kind of, rocking your shoe to start the year. They need him to go where they want to go. I saw him pitch in some of the stuff preseason, and when I was there, he looked really good. But apparently, the time I wasn't there, he kind of got knocked around a little bit. And yesterday, his pitch count just went up way too quickly. I think he was in the 50s by the second inning, and Southern took a 4-0 lead. And LSU's biggest problem last year was their starting pitching in the SEC. You can't be yanking your guy in the third inning, second inning. That throws everything off. And so that'll be the first thing they look to address in terms of a week from now when they're playing Texas in a big non-conference game on the road in front of a hostile crowd. Does he get handed the ball again and go out there? Does he pitch this weekend? We'll see. But yeah, any time that you have some things to fix and you still win the game 18-4, it's a positive thing. Trey Morgan, those are the things you could never plan to do. You could never, we talked about after the game yesterday. If you ever go to the plate saying, I'm going to hit a home run, you never will. Although he said yesterday that was like the second time in his life he went to the plate when he had a chance at the cycle and said, I'm going to hit a home run or I'm going to try.
Wow.
And he blasted it.
Wow.
But, to do it in order, single, double, triple, home run, I mean, those are the things you never see really. So baseball, you go out to a game, you'll see something maybe you've never seen before. But yeah, I mean, and Dylan Cruz, he smoked one Sunday out of the park. Jordan Thompson's, hit here and there. And this Jared Jones. Yeah. This Paul Bunyan, true freshman, this monster of a man who blasted one off the scoreboard yesterday. Yeah, he's special. It seems like he's put up RBI in every game he's played so far.
Well, I think to be the DH on this team is a hell of an accomplishment.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can get that role, you must be a stud.
Yeah, true freshman to go out there and do it. And, you still got your Braden Jobears and just so many people out there. Alex Milazzo, very talented catcher defensively. You hope he hits better. He put some good swings on it too. So they've got a lot of people that they're playing and trying to make involved. Wes Johnson, the pitching coach, Coach Johnson, Jay Johnson, spoke about him Sunday and said, who's the best defensive coordinator in football? Matt House. Wes Johnson's going to have the same impact on the baseball team that Matt House did on the football team this year. So, pitching is such a unique thing in the sport of baseball. Everything else, your pitcher changes every day, and that dynamic changes every day. Not, imagine taking your quarterback out and putting in a new guy every week. I mean, pitching dictates the game more than anything else, and they've got a great one in Wes Johnson.
Yeah, and it was Tennessee got beat this weekend. Grand Canyon beat them, Arizona beat them.
Yeah.
Texas A&M last night got beat by Will Davis and Lamar. It's. I know the SEC has got some heavyweights, and I'm not by any means trying to disrespect the league, but it looks as if LSU, just to start, is very much the elite of the group.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you're excited about it, then you also kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. You look at Western Michigan. I think they were 18-36 last year. I love Blake Money. Last year, Blake Money, I think, in his first 2 starts, had 2 wins and 14 innings of shutout ball against whoever they played, and then obviously in the SEC it was different. So those are the kind of things you look. You've won every game so far, and it's been exciting and everything, but those challenges are coming around the corner, and it is inevitable that you're going to have a crisis along the way, okay? You are going to have a streak where you lose 3 out of 4 or something like that. I mean, even like Blake Dean told me in 2009, we knew we were better than anybody. We had the best team in the country, and they lost 2 out of 3 to Illinois to start the year or something like that. Things like that happen.
Yeah.
So, it's just a long season in which you crown a national champion like the week before the 4th of July. So, it's a game-by-game marathon.
Uh-huh. LSU football's got an opening on staff for the first time in the offseason. How much intrigue do you think there'll be around that special teams coordinator?
Well, I mean, in a perfect world, I'd bring Greg McMahon back in a heartbeat. I know he's coaching in the USFL. I don't know some of the circumstances around him leaving the first time, meaning when Coach O was let go. I don't know. I don't have a list of the great special teams coordinators in college football. But obviously, I mean, all the coaches on campus right now, whether you're talking about Jay Johnson, Kim Mulkey, Brian Kelly, and you ask the people around them, what makes this person great? Attention to detail. Attention to detail. There's no detail that's too small. And you can't look at last year's team and look at the special teams and say, yeah, we're good with that. You've got to make improvements. And so, I'd heard that his desk had been cleaned out a couple of weeks ago, or it was empty, and then he was moving over to somewhere else, and maybe he tried to get jobs everywhere else. I don't know, but I have heard conflicting things about Polian. In fact, that some people say he's hard to get along with, other people say he's a lot more personable than you think, and whatnot. And he's done a good job with the NIL and managing the rosters. Basically, he's going to be the GM of the team, which is what his daddy did. And so hopefully that works well. But yeah, I mean, when you hire friends, it's a slippery slope. Skip Bertman handed it over to Smoke Lavelle. Didn't go the way they wanted it to. Cam Cameron, as you alluded to, Les Miles brought him in. They were buddies. It's a dog eat world.
Even Ed Ogeron and James Craig. I mean, that was a costly relationship. That cost the program. I mean, it was and it was one that was clear that it was an underperformer, right? I mean, and it was somebody that was getting a favor done. I mean, it was like there's a lot of people that would love to coach the offensive line at LSU.
Yeah,
there's a lot of people that would love to coach the special teams at LSU. And when you get to this level and you're trying to win, like LSU is now committed to winning in football, they have pushed all their chips in, pay the contract, pay the decade. $10 million a year, $100 million, commit to it, build the facilities, do the deal. I mean, you can't. The margin for error is too small. I mean, Saban's not doing that. Kirby Smart's not doing that. I mean, Jimbo can't do that anymore. His seat's too hot. I mean, he's got to go find the guys. He's got to go find the ones that he believes in. I mean, it kind of feels like Bobby Petrino is a little bit of that for Jimbo. Comfortable.
Going to hold my nose a little bit.
Yeah, like I'll show you, I'll make the move. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I'm going to do it with somebody that I know I'm comfortable with. And they probably have a relationship where Petrino understands that he's the head coach. And if, third down in the second half against Bama, LSU, or Georgia, and he comes on the headset and says, Bobby, I'm overriding you. We're running this.
Yeah.
It's probably going to happen.
Well, these coaches don't have any time to have any fun or be social anyway. It's work. Yeah. It's all work anyway. So you might as well get the best people for the job while you're there. But boy, it sure makes that first LSU game a pressure cooker, does it not?
It does.
I mean, you're talking about 2 top 10 teams.
Golly,
and
man. I think whoever wins that game could wake up Monday morning and be number 1 in the country. I mean, there's not going to be a game that weekend as highlighted with top 10 teams, in a neutral site with so much to get from that. I mean, if they're not number 1, they'll be top 3.
It's already listed. I saw a list of top non-conference games college football 2023. It's number one.
Oh, sure.
It's LSU Florida State's the number one non-conference game of the year, right out of the chute.
Absolutely. I mean,
So-
I can't wait for it right now. I mean, like, as much as you're talking about both teams, they kind of feel like they're the same. They're at the same spot.
Yeah.
You know, where they've recruited very well. They've got confidence in their coaches now, both sides of Norvell has been signed to an extension. Obviously, Kelly here in year one. I mean, it just feels like they're two programs kind of sitting in the same spot, waiting just for that, that propeller. Like, we need to get to the next level. What can it be? Maybe it's this game. It kind of feels like it's this game.
And you look at it from LSU's perspective, if they don't lose that game last year and they win the rest of them, it's a huge difference in their year, which still was a great, fun year, winning 10 games.
Yeah, and not even on the number, like the perception. Like, think of you, look, and you throw Florida State into a win. You know what I mean? Like, how good that looks for you at the end of the year because of how they finished.
Yeah.
I mean, they finished a lot like LSU did.
A lot said about bowls and what they mean. I mean, how much better do you feel, winning a bowl game 62-7 as opposed to if the last game of the year is the SEC championship loss against Georgia?
And the third straight loss.
Yeah, third straight loss to close out a year. Now, some people said, "Oh, I don't feel any different," but to me, it makes a big difference.
Yeah, no way. I mean, it's the last thing you see.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It gives you that feeling going into the offseason.
And you wouldn't have got the celebration with the Cheez-It, Stewie, on the Cheez-It couch. I mean, they're one of the great moments of the year.
One that'll live on forever.
I said, I don't care where LSU goes next postseason. I want the Cheez-It guy there. He was hilarious.
They got to have the Cheez-It bed, too.
That's right.
From WAFB, our friend Jacques Doucet every Wednesday right here with us. Make sure and hit him on Twitter at Jacques Doucet. We're going to talk more football with Brody Miller coming up here next as we will dive into some of those storylines. As we mentioned, that game is huge for LSU and Florida State. Come back with us. We'll talk more about it with Brody Miller of The Athletic. Good to see you, JD.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We'll be back with more. Red, Rock, and Blue, anything else?
Just get your Vertical Horizon tickets on sale. Get your VIP. Those are going to go quick. VarsityTheater.com.
VarsityTheater.com. All right, we're back with more Jordy Culotta Show, driven and powered by Go Chevrolet.
Donaldsonville Glass and Body, the trusted name in frame, body, and automotive paint repair since 1977. They have served their customers for over 45 years. You can find them online at dgbauto.com or stop in and see them Railroad Avenue and Division Street out in Donaldsonville, Louisiana. Look, they can help you with your insurance claims. They can make the repair process as stress-free as possible. I'm speaking from experience here. I've got numerous windshields, body repair, all done by Kenny and the crew over at Donaldsonville Glass and Body. They are, without question, the most well-equipped shop in the area. Stop in and see them today. Shop them online, dgbauto.com, or stop in and see the crew over in Division Street in Donaldsonville, Louisiana. Donaldsonville Glass and Body.
Red Stick Sports, a local staple in Baton Rouge to all sports fans, was founded back in 1981 and has remained a family business for over 40 years. Today, they still have the great selection on the floor, but they're also a leader in custom apparel for businesses, sports teams, and other groups. Take it from us, everybody over here at FM Digital Media. They help us out with all of our apparel. Let them help you out today. Go ask for Cody over at Red Stick Sports. Check him out online at redsticksports.biz. I was embarrassed about my smile. Are you unhappy at yours? Do you not smile back at yourself? I called my friend, Dr. Spillers, over at Johnson Spillers. He fixed my smile, and now everywhere I go, people are complimenting it after the work that Dr. Spillers and the staff did to my mouth. They can do it to yours. Get in touch with them. JohnsonSpillers.com. 2 locations, one in Gonzales, one in Baton Rouge. Easy to find them, JohnsonSpillers.com.
We're all from different places and backgrounds. We've each experienced our own versions of life, but in the end, we're all on the same team. I'm part of that team, along with these players in purple and gold.
Kayshawn Buddha, Malik Neighbors, Miles Frazier, Kyron Lacey,
Greg Brooks. Whether on the field or in the courtroom, your team matters.
So join our team. Make a difference. Bet. Let's get it done.
All right, welcome back here, Jordy Culotta Show. Running a little late. Our apologies to our next guest, Brody Miller, having him sit here for a couple of minutes. But some LSU football storylines to get to here on this Wednesday. First day back from Mardi Gras. Happy Carnival to everybody. Hopefully everybody's back safe and sound into their workplace, into their home, wherever you are, getting going here after Mardi Gras and on this Ash Wednesday. We check in with Brody Miller from The Athletic. Brody, good morning. How are you?
I am doing well. Thanks for having me as always.
Absolutely, buddy. So some stories around LSU over the last 48 hours. Want to touch on, obviously, Malik Neighbors down in New Orleans, picked up on a gun charge, released from NOPD yesterday morning. What do you expect the fallout to be from this?
Yeah, it's tricky, right? Because Kelly is simultaneously such a big part of kind of what he's doing is discipline and responsibility and, punishments for things like this. And I think there will be punishment. But it's also, as you know, sometimes a tricky thing when these off-field things happen this early in the offseason where, hey, maybe it's more of an in-house punishment. Maybe it's more of something over the next 6 months to handle that. And maybe there will be, a half or a quarter of some game. But quite often you see these things kind of get handled in-house when they're this early. Or maybe it's the, Florida State's the opener. Hey, maybe it's the second game of the year you see them miss a half. That happens. We've seen that a few times. But yeah, I'm sure there will be plenty of punishment with Malik Neighbors. But at the same time, I don't think you're going to see Malik Neighbors, I would be surprised if I saw him say face jail time or anything like that.
Amen. I'm with you. I don't think that he misses a down, especially against Florida State. I think he runs a lot of stadiums. I think he'll have a price to pay somewhere. We just will not see it. And then the other story over the last 24 hours is that Brian Polian has been repositioned inside of the program. What do you expect next for special teams and recruiting?
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating in terms of where they go for special teams coordinator because, one, the fact that they are at the point that they felt this was necessary is showing how seriously they take this, how much they realize that is an integral part of college football that needs to be changed, that needs to be improved. And it's LSU. First off, Brian Polian was making, I believe, $675,000 a year, which he will continue, but that is showing that there is a proven market for how much LSU is willing to spend on special teams, I guess is the best way to put that. Obviously, he had other roles recruiting as well, but I'm curious to see, how national, how big LSU goes with special teams, and it's too early for me to have a bunch of names ready for you of who I think they're going to hire, but shoot, it's like, would they even throw a bag down at Pete Lembo at South Carolina, who is generally considered one of the best special teams coaches of the last 10, 20 years and has done wonderful things in South Carolina, which it's LSU. The country's kind of your oyster in terms of who you're going to go for, but it's also hard to pry a guy in late February, March. But yes, I think LSU is going to go big on that. In terms of recruiting, yeah, I think Brian Polian is going to, move into that kind of general manager-esque role, but, it's going to be a little more NIL, a little more transfer portal, a little more overall roster management kind of operations stuff. And by the way, that's a role that, from what I was told, Kelly talked with him about when he was first coming down here. And Polian, I think, really wanted to be on the field, really wanted to be in a coaching job. And now it's kind of come to this. But this is something that we've seen over the years, right? That college football is headed this way. Yeah. You can't just have a good personnel guy up to that role. I think we're going to see more of a Polian, a guy who actually, is an on-field coach, has major, background, become a general manager because it's too important now. That's half the job. And then I do think on top of that, we do see, Frank Wilson, some other guys maybe take on a slightly, even though Polian will still be crucial in it, maybe take on a larger high school role in recruiting as well. So I think it's going to be a really interesting year at LSU. For sure.
Yeah, you'll probably be managing a cap as a general manager in college football in a couple of years.
Yes. You are talking to the collective guys, I'm sure, constantly figuring out all the situations with that. Yeah, you are, the scholarship numbers, everything's kind of changing constantly. You probably have to be the rules expert in so many ways of just how everything's happening. But yeah, it is a different time. It is no longer like, hey, let's find a guy in the portal. No, it is now you need to be thinking about what your resources are, what you have, what you need. You need to be working on guys for years. That's the other thing of why this role, I think, is relevant, because it's not just it, as we all know, and we've seen with an Aaron Anderson, for example, it's not over at signing day because you need to be kind of through third parties, whatever. Yeah. You need to be having good relationships with guys for years for when the day comes that they hit the portal. You need to be able to talk to them and have a good relationship. So, yeah, this is as much as, Brian Polian is obviously being moved off the special teams coordinator job, and that's real, they're moving him off that for a reason, he is still going to have an essential job at LSU. So it is just kind of fascinating times.
From a recruiting standpoint, you mentioned both Frank Wilson and some of the other staff members. Cortez Hankton's name pops to mind just because of how local he is and the relationships that they have established. Do you think that that's more of a title that they move on in-house, or is that something that they might even stay away from?
That's a good question. I don't have a great answer to that, but I wouldn't be surprised if, with Polian moving the general manager, maybe Frank Wilson does get that. Now, I will say, I think we've all learned so much of titles is about salary.
Absolutely.
And Frank Wilson, for example, already has the associate head coach title, and that gives him a nice little bump. So it's and Cortez Hankton already has pass game coordinator, so that gives him a certain bump. But maybe we don't see a literal recruiting coordinator to another coach, or maybe we do. Maybe a Joe Sloan gets that and he gets a bump. I have no idea. But to your point, it is sometimes semantics. It is. Yeah. Sometimes it isn't. But I think, Tommy Robinson's an example of a guy where maybe it's a little semantics. And I think you will see a lot of those guys take on bigger roles. I do think your Frank Wilsons, your Sloans, even your Canes nationally. Jamar Cain's so important nationally in recruiting. There's so many other guys like that. I do think you'll see a little more freedom maybe to a Frank Wilson that he didn't have that first year in Baton Rouge.
All speculation here on this next question, just kind of judging off of some of the moves here. Yes. But Brian Kelly in the SEC, do you think he realized, whoa, the margin for error down here is? Yep. I mean, you got to be almost airtight on everything.
I think there's so much validity to that. I think first off, we all are, but the biggest believer that special teams is the difference. It is the margin. It is the thing that, I am the 2018 LSU, for example, but so many LSU years under Greg McMahon, they were always top 10, top 15 in special teams, SP plus and all that. And 2018 is always my example because 2018 wasn't exactly an amazing team, but they won every game in the margins. They won so many games. And even if it wasn't just, Cole Tracy making the big kick, it was they won because of those few extra yards in field position. And special teams is everything. And Kelly is such a do self-inventory, look at the whole picture, constantly find ways to evaluate and get better. And I'm sure he did look at this and say, hey, I think they finished 92nd in special teams SP plus this year. Wow. That is unacceptable. That is the difference it literally is the difference in the Florida State game. And you do have to kind of take a step back and make sure that that's a strength because I use South Carolina as an example. South Carolina this year is fascinating because they were 40, I'm putting up 40th in offense, 40th in defense. They weren't some amazing football team, but they were the best special teams in the country. And that is what led to South Carolina having this breakout year with Beamer because they were so good in the details. So I think that is huge. Absolutely.
Going into spring here, still spring dates have not been announced, but anticipate them to be here in the next couple of weeks of when they get onto the field. We've talked a little bit about the defensive line, and you just mentioned Jamar Cain and his presence of what he brings both nationally recruiting and development on the field. What a lot of the names that are going to be in his positions, key positions, are new ones. What are you looking at from that group here a couple of weeks out from seeing them on the field?
Yeah, I'm so intrigued by this group, and obviously some of it's going to be tough because, I don't think we're going to see Mason Smith. We're not going to in spring a ton, or maybe a little. Or you're not going to see. I don't think we're going to see a lot of Mekhi Wingo either. But at the same time, it's such a fascinating group because you have a bunch of pieces you really like. But Mason Smith and Mekhi Wingo technically play the same position, and I know that's semantics. You move things around, but it's do you want to neutralize how good they are by moving them inside a bit more? I don't know if you want to do that. And they're going to figure it out. We're going to see some two-man fronts with them both lined up at the guard, all that. But my point of that is, what does Jamar Cain, what does, Matt House come up with to kind of get the best guys in the field? Because, when you want to go with a true nose tackle, nose guard, Guillory's your guy, and he's a really good one. Jordan Jefferson's really good, too. That's a really good group there. But, how often do they not even use that? But obviously, part of your question, I'm sure, is what happens at that strong side defensive end spot that Ollie Gay's leaving open. Mm-hmm. And that's another one where you add a Parashand, who I think we both like and has high upside. But Savion Jones is developing in such a way that I think he's got to be in the front runner for that job if a Smith and a Wingo don't move over there. But I think, Savion Jones is doing such good things, looks so good in that bowl game, but looked all year. Looked good all year. Kelly raved about him. And we haven't even mentioned Quincy Wiggins, who is the freak. He is the guy who has a chance to be one of the best players at LSU, but it's just kind of getting that clay together as a redshirt freshman. What's his position? I think most likely he's a DN. That's probably what he is. I don't think he ends up being an edge rusher, but still, but is he quite ready? They have a lot of fun pieces because Shand also might step up and be that guy. You have a lot of really good pieces there, but you have no idea what it looks like yet. You have no idea who goes what spot, and that's going to make that really interesting this spring and probably even more so really interesting this summer.
Any feedback from any of the sources that you talked to inside of the program of the impact Omar Speights has had on the defense early on? I've had a lot of people, not a lot, but I've heard people tell me that his leadership really has popped early on.
Yeah, and that's been, and like it's almost like we're a broken record. Like that is, there's so much like I feel like I overhype about Brian Kelly era, but that part's real. Like they are so focused on bringing in the right guys, the right leadership. And yeah, I have heard that Omar Speights. I mean, that's a room where you like the talent at linebacker, but you're probably missing that leader. You're probably missing that guy who like calls the shots. Mike Jones was a leader, but maybe he wasn't like the guy everyone's like, I defer to you because, he wasn't a starter, all that stuff. Yeah. Omar Speights, I think, very much has that. He has a professionalism to him as a 3-4 year player at Oregon State. And I think that's key. And also just football wise, what that does to that room to give them more options, to give them more pieces to move around. I keep talking about how like I'm so intrigued, and I don't really know X's and O's of football. I'll never pretend I'm really an expert, but like Speights seems like such a mobile, float around linebacker, kind of like Perkins in a way. And I'm just interested to see how much you can use those two as kind of like to never allow offenses to diagnose who's who, because both those guys can come off the edge. Both those guys can drop into coverage whenever you want. And that's really exciting. But yes, I've heard those same things. I think Speights is a key addition. And he's the difference from this being like a preseason, number 6 to a, hey, this team really should compete for the playoff if things go right.
Another name that keeps popping on people that I speak with in the program is Emory Jones. Jones seems to have really, and I don't think this is surprising to anyone, but it's just happening in front of their eyes where you're seeing this, first-round NFL draft pick just develop, and not only on the field, in the facility with leadership and maturity. Have you heard any other names? And if you have heard anything on Jones, have you heard similar things?
Yeah, Emory Jones, I mean, it's like, I don't want to get ahead of myself. He's one of the best kids. Like, we've all talked to high schoolers all the time. We all talk, like, he is just clearly an exceptional leader. He thinks things through like an adult. I mean, we all read the stories, and I've written the stories about like, how he basically helped take, like his mom always calls him her caretaker and all that, is her guardian. And that's who he is. And I think that's what now with a year of being a starter, a year of being a guy, he is going to really elevate to being that kind of leader at LSU, because he is that kind of character. He is that kind of guy. I mean, he's in that Mason Smith, Mike Jones kind of group of guys they just trust and lean on. The staff loves. And the thing with Jones, to your point, like he is a stud also. Like he, in a lot of ways, has almost more of like a development frame than even like a Will Campbell, even though Will Campbell is the pinnacle. He's the dude. But like Jones has that long, just athletic body where you can probably put him guard, tackle, whatever you want. He can keep adding weight. He's going to be a star. So I think it's really exciting to see what he becomes. And I think that's a really good call that he's probably like one of the biggest growth prospects of year 2 at LSU. I think that's totally about that.
I agree. It just for how good he was in year 1, and he was fantastic. He was
So
fantastic.
good.
It just, I think that people cannot wait for the public to see how much better he is. Just the experience of what that gave him from a confidence standpoint. That Georgia game going up against those first round picks, I think is going to go a million miles for him. Just what it did for him.
And I'd love to see, I'm not getting ahead of myself because I think realistically the starting lineup's probably the 5 guys we saw last year with Dellinger sliding in for Bradford. But down the road, does Lance hurt? And he's coming in later, but is he so good that he has to crack the lineup? Okay, maybe Emory Jones can move to guard. Like he's practiced there some, and he is the frame to do it. That might even be his more natural position. I could totally see that. Yeah. So I think that is such a big thing that's going to open up things for him, and also probably help his stock even more to show he can do stuff like that. So I'm with you. Emory Jones is like, Quincy Wiggins is probably the number 1. Like, I want to buy stock now and see what happens. But Emory Jones might be number 2.
Yeah, he's Apple. He feels like the most, just like, this thing is going to pay. Every day it's going to pay. All right, last one. I'm going to get you out of here. And it's not football. You had a great write-up, I thought, on the baseball team. And the title of it was LSU has built a super team. Now what the Tigers just need is to win a national title. What did you learn about this team of personalities that has been put together very strategically by Jay Johnson? I think he knew what he was doing when he he sought out to put this group together. What do you expect from this group? What did you learn about them?
Yeah, I think Jay Johnson, I mean, when we were all writing our profiles when he first got hired, right, everything we learned about him was that he's the guy who loves the whiteboard, mapping things out in the offseason. That is how he's a recruiter through and through. But more than that, general manager, to our theme earlier, like, he thinks about building rosters. Yeah. He's such a good recruiter, going back to building those superpowers at San Diego with Chris Bryant. And I think this era might actually, he denies that he's excited for this. He denies that this is a great fit for him, all that. But he has to be careful. But this era feels perfect for him because he is so good at that, and he is so good at relationships, and he has a selling point. And I think what I learned from this was that first year with the portal, when they were able to bring in Jacob Berry, your Riley Coopers, all these guys, that was kind of his, like, they were the first ones really being aggressive with that in college baseball, but it was still just a small amount. It was really just patching holes. But he said, he's like, I think LSU got a head start for this year because Jay Johnson learned how that worked, how simple it can be at times, and how to kind of appeal to people and how you can sell it. So when this year came, where clearly it's become the Wild West, he capitalized and he thrived. I mean, bringing in Paul Skeens, Christian Little, Tommy White, just Thatcher Hurd, the names keep going, Ben Poole. That is, I think no one else is doing that. He's angered a lot of college baseball coaches, but they wish they were doing that too. Yeah. And it's the NIL era, it's the transfer portal era, but I think LSU being the biggest brand, being the superpower, having a coach like that thinks like that, I think that is going to be, this is what LSU can be going forward. And yeah, to what this team can be, they have one of the best lineups in baseball. That's no secret. But now you have a pitching staff that I think the way he put it's really smart. LSU was great in the margins last year. They won so many close games. They did a good job, but they were out of a lot of games because their pitching staff wasn't great. And sometimes they would just be down 8-0, and there's nothing you can do about that. And he's like, now LSU will never be out. There's no games they should just be out of. And I think that's a really good way to put it, that now you have a staff that puts you in every series, every game. And there's no reason this team shouldn't be number one in the country. Absolutely.
Read his work over at The Athletic. Easy to keep up with him on Twitter at Brody A. Miller, and you can catch him here routinely. We always appreciate your time, man. Thank you, and hopefully you had a great Mardi Gras.
I did have a great Mardi Gras. Hope you did too.
Later,
Same, Brody. Same.
Later, man. All right, there he is, Brody Miller, checking in from New Orleans and from The Athletic. Great stuff. As we said, if you want to find his work, you can read it there at The Athletic and read it on Twitter at Brody A. Miller. All right, good to be back. Thanks for being here with us to start off your short week, hopefully, here on this Wednesday. And as we said, everybody hopefully had a good, safe Mardi Gras, whether you celebrated in Southwest Louisiana, whether you celebrated in New Orleans or wherever you were. You ever been to Mamou?
I have never been to Mamou. It was supposed to, we thought about it. We flirted with it, but it was kind of like, New Orleans, Mamou.
We went to Mamou one day and one time in college. We had some people from Eunice.
It was probably a time
that area, bro, and it is such a different experience, and it is such a cool Louisiana tradition that if you don't see it, you don't know about it. It's just wild.
I tell people all the time, like, they think about New Orleans as like the Mardi Gras Mecca.
Right.
But like, if you go to these small South Louisiana towns, you'll find a Mardi Gras that you'll never forget.
And sneaky, like Southwest Louisiana,
yes,
like Lafayette in that area, they love Mardi Gras, man. And I mean, they celebrate it. Stewie and I were talking about Baton Rouge should have more of an imprint on Mardi Gras than they do. I mean, you think about the college kids that are in this area and how big of a holiday for college kids Mardi Gras is. It seems like, down here in Baton Rouge, a college town would be a phenomenal fit. I know our friend Charles Harvey is the president and puts on the Orion parade, which is a fantastic parade that rolls through downtown Baton Rouge. The night before that, his wife, Miss Joanne Harvey, is also on the board of Artemis. She might even run Artemis, which is the sister parade of Orion that runs on Friday night. Orion runs on Saturday. So they have, and look, they're New Orleans people. They have been experiencing and been celebrating Carnival their whole life. They grew up with it in their culture. So they are proud now Baton Rouge citizens who has brought a little taste of that to the city. So there is at least a presence of it. But, I agree, especially like on Fat Tuesday and some of the days that are celebrated. I think Baton Rouge, probably does leave a little bit on the table, but you can find a good time.
Yes,
30 minutes from here, either direction.
I mean, you could go wherever you want.
Wherever you want. I mean, you can go 2 hours from here, an hour from here, an hour and a half, 30 minutes. There's good times to be had on Mardi Gras is a great holiday. Man.
I think it's the best holiday.
I love Mardi Gras. I really do. I mean, I miss it because it's so different now. I mean, I hated to see that, people are getting shot at Bacchus, on the parade route, and there's things like that exist. And I guess that's just the world we live in, man.
Mm-hmm.
I saw where somebody had a bullet through their passenger side door yesterday on I-12 at like 3:50 in the afternoon. People are just kind of shooting people up on the interstate. I mean, it's just a crazy time in the world, man. So stay safe out there. Appreciate you being with us. As always, hit that like button, share button, comment button. We'll be back with you tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Busy day of programming here. Kador is going to be here for Chopping It Up with Kador. They got a special guest coming in. A lot of baseball to talk about, so always looking forward to hearing what Coach Kador and the crew, Perry, have to say. That'll be coming up here at 10 a.m. this morning. Make sure you're following them there. Obviously, Nick Diaz and Out of My League coming up at 3 p.m. today. Nick will be reacting to all of the LSU news. Basketball going tonight, baseball on the road to Round Rock, football looking for a special teams coordinator. So lots to talk about with Nick Diaz coming up at 3 p.m. And then, of course, Mic'd Up with Mikey Matuk, the last player to hit for the cycle before Trey Morgan did it last night for the Tigers was Mikey Matuk back in 2010. Him and Jared Mitchell are in for Mic'd Up, which runs Monday, Wednesday, and Friday right here under the FM Digital Media roof. So thanks for being here on this Wednesday, and we'll be back with you tomorrow morning. Go Chevrolet driving us.